Mike Rogers to the U.S. Senate. And we're going to defeat crooked Joe Biden, and we're going to make America great again. Last week, we saw numbers showing clearly that the economy is crashing, with GDP growing and plunging and all over the place. Nobody knows what's happening, especially Biden. But GDP growth was plunging by more than 50% in the first quarter this year. Nobody's seen anything like that for a long time. We now have a thing called stagflation. Does anyone know what that means? It's not good. It's worse than deflation, and it's worse than inflation. Stagflation is the worst, and that's what we're in right now, which spells the death of the American dream, and that doesn't even include some of the horrible numbers we're seeing flowing in from poor and crime-ridden countries right across our southern border. They're coming in by the millions. That's why this November, the people of Michigan are going to tell crooked Joe Biden, Biden, you're fired. Get out of here. The worst president in our history. There's never been anybody like him. In the past 3 years, the average Michigan family has lost $20,000 or $30,000. Think of this, $20,000 to $30,000 thanks to the Biden inflation tax. We have a new term. It's called a new tax. It's called inflation tax. We call it the Biden inflation tax. That's what's happened, record kinds of inflation. And his price hikes are continuing to drain nearly $1,000 from the a typical family each month loses $1,000 on other different taxes. That's what he's done to you. And by the way, for the auto workers, we'll talk about it later. Your cars are all going to be made in China. Congratulations. That's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Chicken is up 24%, baby food is up 30%, eggs are up 50%, gasoline is up 54%, airfares are up 33%, and the 30-year mortgage rate just hit 7.6%. When I left, it was 2.6%. We had no inflation. Everything was so good. Bidenomics is flat-out economic warfare and welfare on the American middle class and low-income people. It's a disaster. If Joe Biden wins this election, the middle class loses. But if Trump wins, the middle class wins. People of low income will start their journey toward the American dream. Michigan wins and America wins. That's what's going to happen. That's what's going to happen. Just days ago, crooked Joe vowed to impose the largest tax in the history of America. It's going to be the biggest tax hike in the history of America. Biden said the Trump tax cuts are, quote, going to expire, and I'm not going to renew them if I'm reelected. He had no idea what the hell he was saying, so it doesn't really matter. That means under Biden, a single individual earning $75,000 a year will see an almost $2,000 tax hike, and a family of four earning $165,000, think of this, will see close to $3,000 in tax hikes over and above what you're paying right now. But instead of a Biden middle-class tax increase, I will deliver a Trump middle-class tax cut, the likes of which you've never seen before. And I already gave you the largest tax cut in the history of our country, larger than the Reagan tax cuts many years ago. You got the largest tax cuts in history. On day one, we will throw out Bidenomics, and we will reinstate a thing called MAGAnomics. I'll terminate Joe Biden's radical plan to kill Michigan's economy by repealing his insane electric vehicle mandate. Is that the craziest thing? Is that the craziest thing? Everybody's going to have an electric vehicle. By 2030, he wants everyone to have an electric vehicle. There's a problem. They're very expensive and they don't go far. Not going far is not good. Also, they're not going to be made in Michigan. They're going to be made in China. Every single one going to be made in China. United Auto Workers, I just want to tell you, the head of the United Auto Workers has really let you down to agree with that whole situation that they just did. That's so good for China, and it's so bad for Michigan. But I'm going to turn it around. We're bringing the car industry back to Michigan. We're going to put tariffs on foreign cars, and we're bringing the car industry. We're putting tariffs on foreign cars. We're bringing the car industry back to Michigan. The Biden electric vehicle mandate will be an economic bloodbath. You know, they like to use that word bloodbath now. When I said it, it was perfectly stated. They make it sound bad, but it will be an economic bloodbath. Crooked Joe will rip out your auto jobs and send them immediately to China, who, by the way, you know, he's a Manchurian candidate. He makes a lot of money from China. They give him a lot of money. What's that all about? Under the Trump administration, we're going to take jobs out of China and bring jobs back to Michigan. We're going to keep Chinese cars the hell out of America. We don't want them. We don't want Chinese cars. Joe Biden wants to take your gasoline-powered cars and trucks, all about within 6 years, he wants to make them electric. It doesn't work. You know, if you want an electric car, I think it's great. I'm all for it. But if you want a gasoline combustion, if you want to have a hybrid, whatever the hell you want, you should be able to get. Everything will go to very expensive electric vehicles, which don't go, they just have such problems. But they have one problem that is insurmountable. If I want to drive from beautiful Michigan, let's say to Mar-a-Lago, what do I have to do? Stop about 7 times? It's ridiculous. The whole thing is ridiculous. And they want to turn Army tanks all electric. So that as we go into enemy territory, shooting and shooting and killing and shooting and taking it over, we keep their air nice and clean, right? Isn't that nice? Where do they think? You know, I said something before. I just left Wisconsin. We had an incredible rally in Wisconsin. You know, I got to do 2 of these things a day. You know why? Because I'm in New York all the time with the Biden trial. Biden trial. A fake trial. That all of the legal scholars say is a disgrace. It's a fake trial. They do it to try and take your powers away, try and take your candidate away that's killing them in the polls. You know, if I didn't run, or if I was like in 4th place or 5th place or not doing well, none of those trials would exist. But we're beating them so big in the polls, your heart is going to swell. We got to get them out. And remember this, they also want to take your gas stoves. They want to give you very little water in your dishwashers and your washing machines. You know, they want washing machines with very little water. And I'm talking about in states like your state, you don't have a water problem. You do have a water problem. You have too much water. They want to take your water out of your washing machines, your dishwashers. They want to put water restrictors on your sinks and showers. You know, I ended all of that. People would buy a new home, and they were so proud, and they'd say, darling, it's so good. There's only one problem, darling, the sink. No water comes out, like drip, drip, drip. And darling, I have beautiful hair, but I can't do anything because in the shower, the water doesn't come out. Darling, I want to get out of this house. I hate it. And I say to them, take off the restrictor. But now they made the restrictor where you can't take it off unless you have a blowtorch, okay? Like our auto workers do, actually. They want your apartments and homes with small windows and every other crazy thing they can think of. They don't want you to have large windows because they're not as good with the sun. Actually, in many cases, they're better. I will end all of these ridiculous quality of life destroying mandates just as I did just 3.5 years ago. And days ago, crooked Joe Biden finalized a radical rewrite of Title IX education rules that will impose the most extreme left-wing gender ideology on every school in America. And I know you'll be extremely happy to know that the new Biden policy is to let men into every girl's bathroom. That sounds reasonable. Every bathroom, every locker room, ladies get ready because the men are coming in. They actually signed it. You know, I said in Wisconsin, I just came out and I said, the Republican Party really is the party of common sense. You know, we're conservative, or all that. But whether you're conservative, you're liberal, it's about common sense. We're the party, we want to have strong borders, we want to have low interest rates, we want to have a powerful military, we want to have great, by the way, it's windy as hell up here. Man. I'm getting very little use out of these stupid teleprompters, I'll tell you. Could you imagine if Biden was up here and the teleprompters didn't work? He's no good even when they do work. You know, it still doesn't work. If I blow off the stage, I'll be right back up, I promise. But the gender policy, all of the different things that he's done, they're so bad. It's an attack on women. And remember this, they want to allow men to play in women's sports, okay? But I promise you I will defend American women like nobody has ever defended them before. And under the Trump administration, this lunacy will end. On my first day back in the Oval Office, I promise you it will end immediately. And regarding the squatters, where you have a problem, and by the way, you have a terrible governor. I hope you know that. Terrible. Remember during COVID, the only one that had any rights in your state was the governor's husband. Do you remember? Remember he was sailing, beautifully sailing, and you're not allowed to sail? For whatever reason, they wanted to keep you in your house. That didn't work out too well. And regarding the squatters all over the country who are trying to take over your apartments and your homes under the Trump administration, they will be gone immediately. They'll be gone in 2 minutes. Joe Biden is the worst, most incompetent, most corrupt president in the history of our country. And Crooked Joe knows that in a fair election, he's going down in a landslide. Every poll is showing that. You've seen the polls. We're leading big in Michigan, by the way. We're leading big. Why wouldn't we? Who wouldn't be? I mean, honestly, who the hell wouldn't be leading? This guy, he's coming out of a helicopter the other day. He's falling. He's holding on. Can you imagine the foreign countries? Like I visited China. They must have had 100,000 soldiers there. President Xi is standing there. Can you imagine falling out of an airplane or coming down the children's stairs as they have 100,000 soldiers? That's why Biden is trying so hard to jail. He wants to jail his political opponent like they do in third world countries or banana republics. He wants to give it a shot. There's only one problem. Every one of these fake cases is bullshit. Every single one of them. Terrible. And as you know, I've come here today. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. What a crowd. I remember in 2020, you know, we got, well, I don't know if you know, in 2020 we got more votes than any president, any sitting president in history by far. And by the way, there's no way he got 80 million votes, in case you had any question. We got more votes than any sitting president by far. We had, they said if I got the 63 million that I got the first time, which we won, that there was no way I could lose. I got millions and millions of more votes than that. And they nipped us. They just nipped it. We're not letting that happen again. We're not letting that bullshit happen again. We're not going to let it. As you know, I have come here today from New York City, where I'm being forced to sit for days on end in a kangaroo courtroom with a corrupt and conflicted judge enduring a Biden sideshow trial at the hands of a Marxist district attorney, Soros-backed, who's taking orders from the Biden administration. They're all of these trials. By the way, so if I didn't run, or if I came in fourth, I'd have no problem right now. I'd be in a beautiful someplace. I'd be someplace. But you know what? Honestly, look at this crowd. I'd rather be with you. I'd much rather be with you. Much rather. I'd much rather be with you. But what you're witnessing in New York is not a legal proceeding. It's an unlawful exercise in very stupid and very evil politics. But here's the good news. It's driven the poll numbers higher than we've ever had before. Because people get it. It's a scam, and they get it. These indictments are not just an attack on me. They're an assault on the constitutional rights of all Americans. Remember this, Alphonse Capone. Has anyone ever heard of Al Capone? Scarface. He would kill people if he looked at them and didn't like them. They'd be dead the next morning. They'd never find the body. He got indicted less than I did. Do you believe it? Scarface. I got so many indictments. One day I came in, sir, you've been indicted twice today. I said, oh boy, I thought it was going to be 3 times. That's incredible. Now, these are corrupt people. They did this because it's an attack on a political opponent. And a lot of political opponents wouldn't do too well under those circumstances. But I have a relationship with the people, and I explain it to them, and they understand it's a scam, and they understand it's the worst president in the history of our country by far, who couldn't get elected dog catcher, except that he's in a party that's really, really good at cheating. That's one thing. They're not good at policy. They're horrible. Open borders, high interest rates, high taxes, bad military. Everything's bad. No home. Everything's bad. But they're great at cheating in elections. It's about the only thing they do well. The ultimate verdict on this travesty will not come in a courtroom. It will come at the ballot box, and the American people are going to find crooked Joe Biden guilty of trying to destroy our country. He's destroying our country. He's destroying our country. And you know, it's interesting. I said it a couple of times before to large crowds, but what happened is incredible. And we could have done something on Hillary Clinton. I thought it would be a terrible thing for the country, to be honest with you. Terrible. We could have done on other people, too. I thought it would be terrible for the country. And they did on me what was never, ever supposed to happen, especially when there's nothing. But you know what? It was very interesting. When this happened, and it happened very quickly, I changed my tune. I said, thank you very much, because now I speak about him. I had great reverence for the presidency, President of the United States. And I used to talk about him fairly tough, but not nearly as tough as he deserved, because I had respect for the office, not for him so much, but for the office. And now I say he's the worst president in history. He's the most corrupt president in history. He's grossly incompetent. He doesn't know what the hell he's doing. He doesn't have a clue. He is a disaster for our country. And I say it over and over again, and I have no problem in saying it. He's the worst president in the history of our country, and we got to get him out, because he's destroying America. He's destroying our great country. In the middle of a presidential election, think of it, the Republican nominee for president is being attacked like nobody's ever been attacked before. But all of that being done, and all of that being said, the fake charges, the legal targets, everything, and you know, we've had tremendous reviews from great people, Jonathan Turley, Andy McCarthy, Mark Levin, Greg Jarrett, Sean Hannity, so many people, but great experts, great legal experts. Alan Dershowitz just came out saying there's no case, there's no crime. He didn't do anything wrong. What are you doing? These are people, not every one of them love me. These are people that just want to speak the truth. They said there's no Andy McCarthy today. There's no case. It's a witch hunt, and we're not going to take it. We're not going to take it. They can't do that to our country. The judge, by the way, is the most conflicted person in the history. I don't think there's ever been a more conflicted judge. Crooked and conflicted. And I'm unconstitutionally gagged. He gagged me. So I'm not even supposed to be, I would say, talking to you, because he gagged me. Think of it. former president and a very popular president. We had the greatest economy in history. We had the best, safest border that we ever had in history. I rebuilt the military. We created Space Force. We had the biggest tax cuts in history, the biggest regulation cut. And then I run again and win in the fastest time in the history of the Republican or Democrat Party. I won the nomination. Somebody else would still be campaigning to try and win. I won it 2 months ago. Took down some very talented people very quickly, very precisely, very easily. And I have a judge, politically appointed. I have a judge who gagged me. I'm not allowed to talk about things. And nobody's seen anything quite like it, I have to tell you. But the good news is we can explain it. Somebody else wouldn't be able to explain it, not because they couldn't, but because there'd be 3 people in the audience. I can explain it. Look at all those fake cameras back there. Then I had another judge. These are New York judges. I had another judge, Judge Engoron. He takes assets that are worth billions and billions of dollars, and he says, oh, they're worth just a little bit, like 18 million. He takes an asset that's worth $1 billion, $1.5 billion. He says it's worth 18 because that's his narrative. And they come out against me on something where it was absolutely perfect. And he said, oh, you're rich. Pay a $500 million fine. $500 million! And we want a bond. But the problem is bonding companies don't do bonds of that amount. They do a bond for $1 million, $2 million. They don't do bonds of $500 million. But he comes up on a perfect trial, great financial statements. I built a great company. He comes out and he fines me $500 million. And he found me guilty before the case even started. He said, he's guilty. And the guy doesn't even, the other day, he didn't know what cash was. We said, we're going to put up all cash. And he didn't know what that meant. And this is the guy that's ruling on me in New York. And then we have another one in New York who gave someone $91 million because they said I defamed her. Because I said her story isn't true, I defamed her. $91 million. $91 million. Oh, so anyway. Hopefully the appeal process works, because if it doesn't, you just don't have a country. $91 million because I defamed her. Unbelievable, and I didn't defame anybody. Businesses all over the world are watching. They're fleeing New York State because of all of this crap that's going on. They're fleeing, and they're not coming back either. They're not coming back, and hopefully the court system will straighten out, because all over the world they're watching this stuff. They're watching this current trial, and they're seeing what a scam it is, and they don't like it. Nobody likes it. But hopefully we'll win all of that stuff easily on appeal. We haven't had a decision here, but the decision here can probably only be one thing, I guess, because this whole thing, it's a rigged deal. It's a rigged deal. And we shouldn't allow this to happen in this country. We can't allow this to happen in this country. But the fact is, the important vote to me is the vote on November 5th, because it's going to turn out to be the single most important day in the history of our country, and we're going to get things straightened out. We're like in the Soviet Union. That's what's happened in this country. You know, we are. Okay, go ahead. Let's go. Let's go. Think of this. Just think of this. Joe Biden failed on the border. He failed on inflation. He failed on gas prices. He failed on every single thing, including Afghanistan, the most vicious, embarrassing day or period in the life of this country, Afghanistan. Remember that disaster? The most embarrassing day. He failed on every single thing he touches turns to shit. Every single thing he touches turns out to be no good. He's no good on policy. He's no good on military. He's no good on finance. Our country is crashing. He's no good on inflation. Inflation is a disaster. It's eating you alive. It's a wonder Joe Biden and his thugs are so desperate to stop us. They know that we are the only ones who can stop them. We are the only ones. You know, when I say we have a big group of people like this all over the place, and we have more voters. I say we have 250 million people. I say we have 250 million people that want to see our country be great again. In the new Emerson poll just came out, we're up 4 points in Michigan. In another one, we're up 7 points. And I saw one where we're 11 points up in Michigan. And why wouldn't we be? We're also leading in every single swing state, every one of them. That's why we have to watch the cheating. Keep your eyes open. Watch the cheating. The radical left, Democrats rigged the presidential election in 2020. But we're not going to allow them to rig the presidential election, the most important day of our lives in 2024. We're not going to allow it. We're going to protect the vote, and I'm pleased to, this is the first time I've announced this, actually, announced that our campaign is going to be leading a historic effort in conjunction with the RNC, that's Republican National Committee, the state parties, and a team of the most highly qualified lawyers and other professionals in the country to ensure that what happened in 2020 will never happen again. We're not going to allow it to happen again. The only good thing about 2020, it showed how bad they are. It showed what a rotten job they do. That's why we're more popular now than we were 4 years ago. Because you like Trump. And you know what I hate? When these guys get on television, they say, the pundits, you know, the great pundits that never did a thing in their whole lives. You know, we have two very unpopular candidates. We have Biden, and we have Trump. These are very unpopular. I'm not unpopular. We had 94%, 95% popularity in the Republican Party. I'm not unpopular. It's amazing. I'm not unpopular. I'm unpopular with China. China doesn't like me too much. You know, we took in hundreds of billions of dollars from China. No other president took in 10 cents. Other countries, Germany, other countries, I did a lot. Oh, I love that. Look at that young lady. Turn that around. I love that. Wow. That's beautiful. Wow. I want to buy that from you. I want to wear that. Thank you, darling. That's beautiful. Thank you very much. Really beautiful. No matter how you vote, whether it's early on election day, by mail or in person, it doesn't matter. We'll make sure your ballot is secure. We want to make you sure, but we're going to be sure that your ballot's secure. You're not going to put in ballots that don't count. You're not going to put in and do things. You're not going to have other people not there, but putting in a ballot. Like a couple of cases that you happen to hear about. I'm sure you heard about a little place called Detroit, right? Where they had more ballots than they had voters. A little thing like that. And then by the time the people got screamed at all night, they sort of said, oh, they were called every name under the book. And they sort of said, oh, but they had, think of it, they had more ballots than they had voters. We're not going to let it happen again. And you have to be very vigilant, too, because you can see it. You see it happening better than anybody else. It's really a source. We're going to watch the radical left Democrat like hawks. All these Democrats we're going to watch like hawks because, honestly, I don't like saying this. They cheat like hell. They cheat like hell. In plenty of other places, too. And we're going to make America great again. It's very simple. We're going to make our country great again. Every time the radical left Democrats, Marxists, communists, and fascists indict me, I consider it a great badge of honor because I'm being indicted for you. Never forget, our enemies want to take away my freedom because I will never let them take away your freedom, and it's good. It's good. Never. And it's good that I have a good memory. You know why? Because this teleprompter is facing you, not facing. These teleprompters are just gonzo, folks. They're gonzo. I hate to use the word folks. Cross out the word folks. You ever hear Biden? Every other word is folks. Okay, folks. It's like a nervous habit. I don't use the word folks. They want to silence me because I will never let them silence you. And in the end, they're not after me. They're after you. And I just happen to be standing in their way. Standing in their way. And it's an honor to have this crowd. This is a hell of a crowd. That's a big, look at it. They go past the hangar. You know, I ask this all the time, and it never happens. It's very sad, actually. But I ask it all the time. It never happens. I want the press to take their cameras and turn them around. And right from the beginning, from 2015, you know, before we ran, and as we had these big crowds, never an empty seat, but we had the big crowds. And I would ask them, turn around and show the crowd. And even the ones that are semi-friendly, they just wouldn't do it. And I thought it was a mechanical problem that they couldn't do it, but they could. I learned that they could. There you go. But I'd like them to turn the camera backwards and see the crowds and see the people that can't even get in here. And I thought it was a mechanical. I figured the steel, and you can't turn the camera. And then in 2016, there was a very bad fight in the backhand, left-hand corner of the room, and the cameras hardly had access to it. And those cameras turned around like a pretzel. And I realized they don't want to show our crowds. They don't want to show our crowds. But I'd love you and the fake news media to turn the cameras around and show the crowds. It would be a great thing. Watch. The cameras will be dead on. They never do it. Because they're fake. That's why we call them the fake news. That's why we call them the fake news. So we're pleased to be joined. It makes no sense. You know, it would be more exciting for somebody watching at home to see a big crowd. But for some reason, they just don't do it. And I guess they're instructed by the boss not to do it. But we're going to kick the boss's ass pretty soon. We're pleased to be joined tonight by a man who is going to be a warrior in the United States Senate. And more importantly, he's just going to be a winner. He's going to win this race. This is going to be, I think, an easy race. He's highly respected. Mike Rogers will vote to secure our borders, crack down on sanctuary cities, support our police, and stop the crime that is ravaging your communities and ravaging our countries. He'll vote to block the Biden tax hikes. He'll allow nothing to happen bad to our country. He's going to stop things from happening bad to our country. The Michigan auto industry will be demolished if you don't have guys like him, but you're going to have me. I'm going to save your industry, and we're going to make your industry much bigger. Because we're going to put tariffs on cars that are coming into our country. I don't know if you know it. By the way, before I do with Mike, China is building some of the largest auto plants in the world along our border in Mexico, and they think they're going to take those cars and sell them into the United States and lose all your jobs in Michigan. And you ought to tell the head of the auto workers, as a union boss, he stinks, because what he's allowing to happen to you as union workers, and we're going to get 95% of the auto workers anyway, but we're going to put tariffs on those cars, and we're not going to let them sell those cars in the United States. We're not going to let it happen. Mike will be facing off against a far-left liberal lunatic named Slotkin. She's terrible. She's terrible. Not respected in Washington, laughed at, gives everything away to the opponent, very big for China. She fully supports banning gas-powered cars and trucks. She wants you gas. By the way, especially you, somebody that's against gasoline-powered cars, you can't have them in this state. Because if you told me you want to have her, and if somebody wanted to fight me on gas-powered, then we can't make your auto industry great, because it's only going to be the hybrids and the gasoline-powered cars that are going to turn around your state. So you have no choice but to vote against her. Slotkin is also an open borders extremist who has repeatedly voted for mass amnesty. She is not, I don't think she's going to, I tell you, Mike, I think you're going to win this thing big. A vote for Slotkin is a vote to raise your taxes, kill Michigan manufacturing jobs, and flood your communities with illegal aliens and a lot of Chinese-built electric vehicles. I don't think we want them in Michigan. That's why you must vote for Mike Rogers, highly respected, no matter where he goes. Mike, come on up, Mike. Come on up. Come up here. Hi, Mike. Mike. Thank you,
Thank you for this, by the way.
Say a couple of words, yeah.
Mr. President, this crowd is fired up because they know when you get into the White House, these folks have your back, too. And they know, and they've been telling America, and they're going to go door to door for you, for me, for the Republican Party, and tell the rest of our state and our country that help is on the way. Yeah. And just one last thing, Mr. President, I had a slight little lead, to show that you were a little bit popular in the Republican Party. Donald Trump endorsed me. 2 days later, I was 60 points ahead of our opponents. Wow. Thank you, Mr. President. Thanks for what you're going to do. Thanks for having the courage to stand up when so many would not. Thank you, Mr. President.
We're with you all the way, man. He's going to win. It was an honor to endorse him, and I'll tell you, he's respected all over. He's respected by everybody. You have a rare choice there. Normally you come in, people haven't heard his. He's a man who was tested and highly respected in Washington, and that's what you need, especially with the car industry and all of the other things. I thought that was China. That was a loud plane. That was an old one. Those old ones are a little loud. We're also pleased to be joined by Michigan GOP Chair, Ambassador, and a very good friend of mine, Pete Hoekstra. He's fantastic. Pete, hi, Pete. Thank you. How we doing, Pete? Everything good? I hear very good numbers. Yeah, thanks. Pete is fantastic. Was a congressman, was an ambassador, and everything he did, he was really successful at. He was with me all the way. Michigan Senate Republican leader Eric Nesbitt. Thank you, Eric. Thank you very much. Great job. Doing a great job. Michigan House Republican leader Matt Hall. Thank you, Matt. Great job. And we have a lot of others. And we have a woman who I think is a fantastic woman. And she's become like a television star. She's on a lot. And she only says great things about me. So I like her. If she didn't say great things, I wouldn't. But I do. I like her a lot. Tudor Dixon. Tudor. Thank you. Great job you're doing, Tudor. On day one of my new administration, I will seal the border, stop the invasion, and send Joe Biden's illegal aliens back home where they belong. Less than 4 years ago, we had the most secure, the best, the safest border by far in U.S. history. We ended catch and release. We built 571 miles of border wall. We were getting ready to add another 200 miles. We would have it done in approximately 3 weeks. The wall was all built, all ready to be put up. And then we had a rigged election, but it was all ready to be put up. But we built more than I said we were going to build, and we had another 200 miles coming. Would have been great, filled up some of the loops. And they decided they didn't want to put it up. That's when I realized they're open border fanatics. And that's the way it works out. And remember this, I said to Mexico, you got to give us 28,000 soldiers. They laughed at me. They said, what do we do that for? And I like the president of Mexico very much. He's a socialist, but that's okay. He's a nice guy. I said, you got to give me 28,000 soldiers to protect the border because you're killing our border. You're sending all these people in the caravans. And he said, I can't do that. I said, you're going to do that. You have to do that. Anyway, I said, I'm putting a 100% tariff on everything that you send into the country from now on. They said, we would be pleased to give you 28,000 soldiers. And they did. And we had the safest border in the history of our country, and now we have the worst border in the history of the world. There's never been a border like it. Crooked Joe Biden, in his horrible way, it's just he's made our country a dumping ground. In Venezuela, violent crime is down 67% because they took their criminals and their gang members and their drug dealers and they moved them into the United States of America, and their crime is now down 67%. That's a beauty. And right here in Michigan, your state is being torn up to pieces with migrant crime. It's a new term, migrant crime. 3 months ago, an illegal alien criminal was sentenced in Kent County for executing a 22-year-old Grand Rapids woman while she was in the car with her 1-year-old baby, shooting her at least 5 times, 4 times in the head with a rifle at point-blank range while the killer was, and he was wanted all over the world. He couldn't get in during the Trump administration, but like everybody else, he just walked in during the Biden administration, killed this woman viciously and violently. In Oakland County, organized squads of illegal alien gang members, and they are taking over. The only thing good about them is they make our criminals look like nice people, okay? These are rough people. They're hiding in the bushes, breaking into rural and suburban homes after dark, looting them for jewelry, purses, electronics, watches, cash. You know better than I do. That's in Oakland, but it's all over your state. It's all over almost every state. And last week in St. Joseph's County, an illegal alien was charged with breaking into a Michigan home and sexually assaulting 2 young girls while threatening to kill them if they screamed or tried to escape. When I return to the White House, we will stop the plunder, rape, slaughter, and destruction of the American suburbs, cities, and towns. We're going to stop it cold. We will immediately end all sanctuary and deadly sanctuary cities. I will shift massive portions of federal law enforcement to immigration enforcement, and we will impose a naval blockade on the cartels because when we clean up the land, they come in by sea, and they have plenty of money to do it. We will put the cartels out of business. They will be out of business, and quickly. And on day one, we will begin the largest domestic deportation operation in American history. Right? Thank you. All you need to know about Joe Biden is that every 100 days he's adding 500,000 illegal immigrants and $1 trillion in debt. Remember this. They're coming in by the millions. I think the real number already in our country is 15 million. That means traffickers, usually mostly in women. That means drug dealers. But it means a lot of people. And these are people coming out of jails and prisons. They're coming out of mental institutions, insane asylums. These are not people we want. And they're coming from all over the world. You know, they're not coming just from South America. Last week they came, 22 came out of prisons from the Congo in Africa. We wish them well. From the Congo, they came out rough people. Where do you live? The Congo. Where are the Congo? We came out of prison in the Congo. They've emptied their prisons from South America, from Africa, from all over the world, including even places in Europe. They've emptied from Asia. They've emptied their prisons into the United States of America. Prison population all over the world is down, and nobody knows why except for us. We know why. Because the prisons are being emptied into the United States, and the mental institutions are being emptied into the United States of America like we're a dumping ground because we have a president who's a stupid person or he hates our country. Or he hates our country. And this is not sustainable by no country can sustain this. Nothing like this has ever happened, and no country can sustain this. Crooked Joe, with his insane border policies, will destroy Medicare and Social Security because they're going to go out of business. And you know that illegal aliens coming into our country under Biden are treated better than our vets. Our vets aren't treating as well. They're not being treated as well as illegal aliens who are occupying luxury hotels in cities. Can you believe it? What's going on? So horrible. As president, I will always protect Social Security and Medicare for our great seniors 100%, just as I have for 4 years. And by the way, while we're on it, it was always the plan from the great legal experts of this country and even the world, everybody, Democrats, Republicans, liberals, conservatives, they wanted to get abortion out of the federal government. You know that. They've been trying to do it for 50 years. Then about 10 years ago, people lost their way, started talking about how many months they have, how many months are we allowed, how many weeks are we allowed, where does it take place, how does it take place, who are the doctors. They started getting into things that had nothing to do with the original discussion on Roe v. Wade. They forgot the idea to take abortion out of the federal government. That was the idea, and to move it into the states and let the states make the decision, let the people decide. After 50 years, we were able to do that, and now you're seeing it done. Some people will be happy, some people will be okay, some people won't be quite as happy, some will be thrilled. Some of the decisions, they vary quite a bit. Some are in conservative states, and they're more liberal than they would have liked to see them. Some are in liberal areas, and they're more conservative than they would have liked to have seen them. And some people are thrilled at the concept of exactly because everybody basically wanted to get it out. It's wrong to be in the federal government. They wanted to get it out. The states now decide on abortion, and you go to the states, and the states come out, and they decide, which is what everybody wanted for over 50 years, and we got it done. This is different. Remember, from the standpoint of what's happening, nobody wants to see abortion in the 8th month or the 9th month, or nobody wants to see execution after birth. You have a situation where Democrats, in many cases, will allow it, execution after birth, the 7th, 8th, 9th month, and after birth, execution. And if you remember, the governor of Virginia said it. He said, we talk with the mother along with the doctor. She has the baby, we put the baby aside, and we decide what to do with the baby, meaning, do we execute the baby? This is called radical politics. This is something, they are far more radical, but it's not even a question of that. It's a question that we have to take care of the situation. Getting it back to the states was something that was very important to everyone. We had to take the radicalism out from the Democrats, because when you can do execution or killing at a point in the life cycle, it just can't be allowed, or we're not going to allow it. But now states are deciding, and some people are very happy because it's a liberal policy, and it is. It's a liberal policy, or it's a very conservative policy, but we brought it back to those states where everybody's been fighting to have it for 53 years, and it's taken a lot of courage and a lot of oomph and a lot of controversy out. A lot of controversy has now been taken out. You've seen what's taken place over the last period of a couple of months. People are getting together and they're deciding within their own states. And remember this, as a politician, you have to have heart. You have to have what your heart determines, and you have to fight for what's in your heart and what's the right thing to do. But remember, you also have to get elected. Getting elected is also important, not only on this issue, but on taxes and military and everything else. You have to get elected, because if you don't get elected, it goes back to the federal government, perhaps, or you have many other things that can go wrong. So go with your heart, do what's right. Everybody wanted this to be done. Every legal scholar wanted this to be done. Most Democrats wanted it. Liberals wanted it. This was a while ago. Then they changed their mind. They viewed it as a political deal. A lot of bad things will happen beyond the abortion issue if you don't win elections with your taxes and everything else. So it's been very interesting. And again, some states have been right where they wanted to be. Other states have gone more liberal than they wanted, and some have gone more conservative. But it's all working out, and the votes are coming up now in certain cases, and it's all starting to work out, and it's going to ultimately bring our country together. It gets the vote down to the people. We did something that took courage. We did something that everybody wanted to see. But now I say it's up to the states, and I want to thank the Supreme Court justices for having the courage, Clarence Thomas, Samuel Alito, John Roberts, Brett Kavanaugh, Neil Gorsuch, Amy Coney Barrett, for the wisdom and the courage to do this. This took a great deal of courage and a great deal of wisdom to do this, and all we want to do is we have to get our country back together. It takes a very long fought-over issue, an issue that was never going to be resolved, according to many. It brings it back to the states where every legal scholar and where most people wanted to see it, and it's working out. So I just want to thank the Supreme Court for the wisdom and for the courage, and thank you very much. From the very first day that we take back the White House from crooked Joe Biden, I believe we're going to have the 4 greatest years in the history of our country. I think we can do that. It's not easy. Not easy with what they're giving us, I will tell you. But the one thing that has been interesting about this 4 years, it shows how bad their policies are. It shows that their policies don't work. And one of the reasons we are more popular than we were 4 years ago, we were very popular, but more popular is because they're so bad, they're so incompetent, they're so evil, they're so corrupt, and it makes us look that much better. Before I even arrive at the Oval Office, shortly after we win the presidency, we win, all of us together are going to win, I will have the horrible war between Russia and Ukraine settled. I know them both. I will get it settled. We will demand that Europe pay much more for the cost of defense. You know, we're paying the lion's share to Ukraine. And I keep saying, why isn't Europe paying more? You know, the economy of Europe, if you add up all the various countries, is about the same size as the United States. They've got plenty of money. Why are we paying, and they're paying very little by comparison? They have to equalize, and they have to equalize fast. It's not right. And remember, it's more important to them. We have a thing called an ocean between us. Much more important to them. They have to come up with the money. That means somebody has to ask them. You know, I did it with NATO. I said, you're not paying your fair share. They said, you're the only one that's ever said that. I was the only president. Bush would make a speech. Obama would make a speech. They'd all go and make speeches, and they'd leave, and that'd be it. I didn't make a speech. I said, what are you doing? I looked at the books. I said, we're paying 90%, maybe even 100% of NATO. So we're defending you militarily, and you're taking advantage of us on trade. How does that work? And I said, you have to pay. They ended up putting up more than $430 billion, $430 billion, because I asked. Now I asked the right way. I remember during a meeting, one of the presidents of one of the European countries stood up, and it was a closed-door meeting. He said, may I ask you a question, Mr. President? Yes. If we don't pay, we're not paid up, and we're attacked by Russia, will you defend us? I said, you mean you're delinquent? You haven't paid? That's right. No, I will not defend you. The next day, the money came pouring in. You got the money. I took a lot of heat from the fake news. They said, you shouldn't treat allies like that. I said, no, allies shouldn't treat us like that. They should pay their bills. And it made NATO much stronger because of it. It made NATO rich and strong, and the head of NATO, the Secretary General, he said, Stoltenberg, he said that Trump is amazing. He did something that nobody else has been able to do. It's incredible. Now, I don't know if he'd say that today, but he certainly said it then, and I think he said it recently even again. And another thing that was very good is a country, Hungary, very strong leader, Viktor Orban. They asked him, why is the world blowing up? What's wrong? This is a few weeks ago. Why is it so bad? What do you recommend? Now, he's a strong man. He's a strong guy. He's a tough leader. He runs a country very well. He allowed no illegal immigrants in his country. He went against other European countries, which have frankly half destroyed themselves. And I said, they asked him the question, what would you recommend? He said, I would recommend one thing. Get Donald Trump elected president again, and you're going to have no problems anywhere in the world. Get him elected president. That's true. Thank you. Thank you. It's true. I don't want to be the one to say it, but if I don't say it, nobody else will. That I can tell you. And he used a word I wouldn't use, but he used it. He said, China was afraid of him. I don't like to use the word afraid. Let's say they respected me. But he said, China was afraid of him. Russia was afraid of him. Look what I did to Russia. Nord Stream 2, nobody ever heard of Nord Stream 2. Nobody in this audience. I'm the only one that knew what it was. It's the biggest pipeline in the world going to serve Europe. And I said, so we're defending them against Russia, and yet they're paying Russia billions of dollars a month for oil. How does that make sense? I ended it. I closed Nord Stream 2. Then they say that I was friendly to Russia. I wasn't friendly to Russia. I got along with Putin. That's a good thing, not a bad thing. But I closed Nord Stream 2, and Putin said to me, if you're friendly to me, I'd hate like hell to see if you weren't friendly. This is not good. He was not happy. But I closed up the pipeline before it got finished, before it got built. When Biden came in, one of the first things he did is approve Nord Stream 2, the biggest pipeline in the world. And then they say, oh, Trump was very soft. They're full of misinformation and disinformation. That's all they're good at. That and cheating on elections. That's all they're good at. Biden's weakness has led the planet to the edge of nuclear war. I will bring the world glorious new peace, and I will make the following statement. I am the only one that can say this, I believe. I know them all, and they respect me. They don't respect our country anymore. It's a country that's in decline, but they respect me, and we're going to have it back very soon. We're going to have a great country very soon. But I'll say this. I will prevent World War III. I'm the only one that's going to do it. Biden. You know, if I were president, if the election were an election that it should have been, you would have never had Russia attacking Ukraine. Even Democrats admit this. Would have never happened. Never did happen for 4 years. Not even a discussion. Russia wouldn't be attacking Ukraine. And on October 7th, Israel would have never been attacked by Iran. Iran was broke. When I was president, Iran was broke. I told China, if you buy 1 barrel of oil from Iran, you're not going to do any business in the United States. I said that to many countries, and they did very little oil. Check it out. They did almost no business in selling oil, which is their lifeblood. And we would have had a deal within 1 week after the presidential election. We would have had a deal. And you know what the deal would have been? It would have been fine for them. But it would have had one thing. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Very simple. They cannot have a nuclear weapon. And now they're 60 days from having a nuclear weapon because these people have done nothing. I gave it to them on a silver platter. They were broke. They had no money. And I heard this from a Democrat congressman on Deface the Nation. Ladies and gentlemen, Deface the Nation. And he said, I will admit that under Trump, Iran was broke. They had no money for Hamas. They had no money for Hezbollah. They had no money for terror. And now they have $230 billion. They made it in 3.5 years. But we'll get something done. But it's a very precarious position. But I will prevent World War III, and we will have peace through strength. That's what we're going to have. In my next term, we will build a great Iron Dome, very much like Israel has, but even better. I'm saying, why don't we have that? We should have that too. We have a lot of hostile people out there. We have a lot of bad actors out there. We're going to build the greatest dome of them all. We're going to have it all made right here in America. Some of it's going to be made right here in Michigan. State-of-the-art missile defense shield that will be entirely built in America and will create jobs, jobs, jobs. And we're going to have the greatest dome of them all. We're going to have greater. You saw how effective that was with Israel last week with 300 rockets shot. Every one of them knocked out, every one of them knocked down. Probably if they didn't have it, they wouldn't even have Israel right now, if you think about it, right? All those would have hit various locations. Virtually none of them got through. Amazing. We're going to have a more sophisticated version. We have the technology. We have the genius. We're going to have we're going to build a great Iron Dome. We're going to have a shield around our country, and it's made here, and it's going to be a great thing. We're also going to rebuild our cities. And they're going to we're going to make them beacons of hope and safety and beauty, better than they have ever been before. Right now, they're crime-ridden. They're falling apart. They're run by Democrats. I'll work with the Democrats. We're going to rebuild our cities. You see what's happening with your cities. You see Detroit. For 35 years, I've heard about this great comeback in Detroit, and we're still waiting. We're still waiting. It's taken a long time. But we're going to make our cities great again. We're going to take over the horribly run capital of our nation in Washington, D.C., clean it up, renovate it, rebuild our capital city so that it will become the most beautiful capital in the world again. And we're going to get rid of the horrible, violent crime that's taking place there. You go there from Michigan and you end up getting stabbed or shot, and people aren't even going. It's horrible. Graffiti all over the place. We're going to take it back. We're going to make it beautiful. We're going to renovate it and build it, and we're going to make it much more beautiful than it ever was. It'll be the most beautiful capital city anywhere in the world, and we have an obligation to do it. On day one, I will sign a new executive order to cut federal funding for any school pushing critical race theory, transgender insanity, and other inappropriate racial, sexual, or political content onto the lives of our children. I will not give one penny to any school that has a vaccine mandate or a mask mandate. I will keep men out of women's sports day one. Day one. Signed up. Day one. How ridiculous is that? How crazy. That's like open border. I mean, there are things that are so crazy. Like, who the hell wants an open border where countries from all over the world are infiltrating and violating our country? It's the same with men playing in women's sports. I mean, take a look at what's happening. Take a look. It's so disrespectful to women. But take a look at what's happening to records. Records that have stood for 18 years are being shattered. Shattered by numbers that nobody's ever even thought of before. I will fully uphold the always under siege Second Amendment, guns. I will always uphold. We will protect innocent life, and we will restore free speech, and we need free speech in this country. And I will do something that nobody else has a passion for like I do. I will secure our elections and make them real, beautiful, safe elections. And our goal will be one-day voting with paper ballots, proof of citizenship, and voter ID. Very simple. Voter ID. But until then, Republicans must win. We have to win. We have to win. That's why I say, use your heart. Go back to the abortion question. We have to win. But we have to go out. Otherwise, it's going to be a very, very bad period for this country. We have to win those elections. We want, in the case of our election, our presidential election, we want a landslide that's too big to rig. Too big to rig. We got to make it so big. Because one thing we know, at a certain level, they can't cheat. They can cheat, but it won't matter. So we think we're going to have them stop, but that's what they do best. We want to make our win too big to rig. if you took the 10 worst presidents in the history of the United States and added them up, they would not have done near the destruction to our country as crooked Joe Biden and the Biden administration has done. And I used to say, and you know that because a year ago, if you heard me at a rally, and the rallies are bigger and better and stronger than ever before, the whole thing is ready for a big victory on November 5th. But if you heard me, I used to say if you took the 5 worst presidents, now I said that's not enough. Now I say 10 worst. I have a feeling by the next time we meet, it'll be the 15 and maybe the 20 worst. He's so bad. He's the worst president ever. It's pathetic. And you know what? As a country, we're laughed at all over the world. All over the world, we're laughed at. He flies to Saudi Arabia to meet the king. He's in the plane for 24 hours. He stumbles out of the plane. He meets the king finally. And instead of shaking his hand, he gives him a fist pump. In other words, don't touch me. I don't want to touch your hand. This is what we got negotiating for us. He can't negotiate. He can't do anything right. And everything he touches turns out bad. And we just don't want it. We want to make our country great again. We're tired of watching this clown show. So if you want to save America, get every common sense person you know, you go register and vote Republican. You got to vote for us. You got to vote for Mike and everybody else on the ticket. But we're going to turn it around fast, Mike, right? We're going to turn it around fast, and he's going to be a great help. I'm so happy that he's running, frankly. I'm so happy. So in conclusion, together, we are taking on some of the most menacing forces and vicious opponents our people have ever seen. We've never seen anything like it. But no matter how hateful and corrupt the communists and criminals we're fighting against may be, you must never forget this nation does not belong to them. This nation belongs to you. It belongs to you. This is your home. This is your heritage. And our American liberty is your God-given right. This is your God-given right. From Marquette to Midland, from Frankfort to Flint, and from Detroit to Saginaw, we stand on the shoulders of red-blooded Michigan patriots who laid out the railroads, worked the factories, tilled the fields, forged the seals, fought the battles, and won the victories that made America into the greatest and most powerful nation anywhere in the world. We love our nation. But now we are a nation in decline. We are a failing nation. We are a nation that has lost its confidence, its willpower, and it's lost its strength. We are a nation that has lost its way, but we are not going to allow this horror, it's an absolute horror, to continue any longer. 3 years ago, we were a great nation, and we will soon be a great nation again. It was hard-working patriots like you, the people of Michigan, who built this country. And it's hard-working patriots like you who are going to save our country. Our country must be saved. Our country is in big, big, very dangerous trouble. Our country has never been in a position like this. We're laughed at all over the world. We're not respected by anybody. Our economy is going to hell. Inflation is eating everybody alive. Everything is wrong with our country. There's nothing that's going right. We will fight for America like no one has ever fought before. 2024 is our final battle. With you at my side, we will demolish the deep state. We will expel the warmongers from our government. We will drive out the globalists. We will cast out the communists, Marxists, and fascists. We will throw off the sick political class that hates our country. We will rout out the fake news media. We will drain the swamp. And we will liberate our country from these tyrants and villains once and for all. We will liberate our country. Like those patriots before us, we will not bend, we will not break, we will not yield, we will never give in, we will never give up. We will never, ever, ever back down. We will never back down. With your support, we will go on to victory, the likes of which no one has ever seen before. We will evict crooked Joe Biden from the White House, and we will take back our country on November 5th, 2024. The great silent majority is rising like never before, and under our leadership, the forgotten man and woman will be forgotten no longer, and it wasn't forgotten. Man and woman 4 years ago was not forgotten. They were somebody. They were proud. They loved our country. We are one movement, one people, one family, and one glorious nation under God. And together, we will make America powerful again. We will make America wealthy again. We will make America strong again. We will make America proud again. We will make America safe again. And we will make America great again. Thank you, Michigan. Thank you. God bless you all. God bless you.